Welcome to our lovely future humans, our 5D collective. To those who are new, let's chit chat a little bit before we get into the actual conversation about discerning trends or truths. And that is, how do you find your real personal growth and or your soul journey? Well, obviously it's not by buying into the growth trends. So if you're confused, no, if you're a person who has questions, I'm going to say, are you curious with your questions? I'm an epistemically curious one, so when I'm listening to anybody on YouTube, I'm always like, wow, all this amazing information, but I'm not coming into it with how, like, afraid kind of deal. Okay, so 5D collective, FYI, we have this whole self, which means we have our own back even when others don't have our own back. And so you're not afraid of rejection, abandonment, betrayal, humiliation, or injustice. And you're also not carrying any of those wounds around and projecting that. So nobody's a demon. The evil stuff I want to let you all in on, there's just good therapists for those who want to get out of that, which is an unfortunate business called the dysregulated state. Okay, so what I noticed is that the trends that people buy into are not actually something they're fooled by. It's more of what they believe to be true, because they look at an equanimous, discerning human being like myself and say, I'm a bypasser. And I will think, no, I actually don't bypass my anger, my sadness, my fear, the three main subcortical areas. I don't bypass my surprise, disgust, or happiness. I share it with the world because I'm authentically myself. And I'm authentically wielding my emotional state. So that's why it's equanimous, common-centered. It's discerning because I know how to clearly spot my thoughts and my activated state and or my emotional state, which really always comes up first. And so you have ownership of the sensations, images, feelings, thoughts. There's you filter with mind sight, a mind sight lens. I learned the term from Dr. Daniel Siegel. Okay, so 5D collective, we're future humans, FYI, because 4D, 3D don't know we're here. 3D suffer life, 4D have an unsteady self-image and a mesh with a bunch of things, which we'll get to later with some spiritual mystic channel guidance food for thought. But in the meantime, if you're curious, how do you find your real personal growth and or soul journey? Number one, you have a whole self, your nervous system sovereign. Is it easy for you to be yourself or hard? Okay, do you know it's okay to make mistakes and that articulation isn't everything? But of course, the capacity for you to sit and stand in your ventral vagal state, that does make a difference. Okay, so the ventral pivot has you fill a room because you're self-regulating and co-regulating. As for the words we use, of course they can matter, but really what matters is the energy you're coming in with. So when you're empowered to be yourself, and you know your shits, if you will, even if someone's like, and they do a bunch of shit in front of you, you're like, oh, that's okay, that's called differences. Was I supposed to be reacting to this? Okay, so you shoot for the high road. You choose the high road. If somebody gets in your face, you don't use hands. Even if you get upset, it's not about suppression. High road, high bar. It's about the common sense, but also the relational integrity that comes with also the awareness of subjective reality, and it begins with emotions. And those who deny it, it's okay. We are not going to make them go to Terreal, because, Terreal is amazing. For those who do go, he's got their back and says, okay, enough with the, let's shove it away and pretend, or the chaotic stuff. So people who buy into the trends, like an app that can help you in 28 days, are the people who disregard their other options. People who don't disregard their other options follow the ones who give them tangible practices, like Dr. Daniel Fox. I think it's a Dr. Frank Anderson, Terry Real. I don't remember how many are doctors or not, but Daniel Siegel, Dr. Daniel Siegel, Bezel Vanderkolk. They will learn from those people, but then they will also take themselves seriously enough to notice if they do need help, because their maladaptive patterns aren't getting better. And so, like Dr. Daniel Fox presented, don't auto-diagnose yourself, because then you're going to create this label. But if you have a feeling, if you notice certain things and you come to an expert or reach out. He just recently shared a colleague of his to give people someone to work with in California, if I remember correctly, because he can't help them from where he is at his state. Okay, so when you meet the ones who care, a therapist, they're going to continue to provide people ways to be able to heal themselves, and then they're going to be grounded in reality, telling them what signs to look for. People who care, they're going to do it. The people who, on the other hand, are in a different state, well, I'm going to leave that alone. So, number one, the commoditization of growth. This word is really hard for me, but personal development has become a product. So between apps and courses and aesthetics that promise quick fixes, you will notice that they talk to you also about shadow work and integration, being able to have some kind of shortcut. Okay, so integration of the embodied brain happens because you own all of you. That means it's not hard for you to be yourself. It also means when you get angry, sad, afraid, I have panic attacks, I have handled it like a champ. It's not a competition though, please. Told a woman this once, hey, this is how I handle it, and she yelled in my face. I was like, what? Then I found out what that is called. It's called projecting in an activated state, and a person who didn't understand. I didn't tell you you have to do it. I was thinking of helping you because I can do it. Maybe you can do it too, but obviously, did they take ownership of their reaction? No. Does that mean that I need to be pouty and say, I'm never going to talk to you again, you treat me like a little piece of shit? No, because actually I understand what happens when trauma charges come up, because that's what happens when people meet the eyes of a person who's self-empowered. Thank you, Bethany Brand and Ruth Lanus, for the explanation. So the explanation is of an embodied brain that meets the eyes of others, and because with our right we see each other, my sense of self, somatic empaths, we only heal each other when, one, there's something to heal, but two, if another is wanting to welcome themselves, which in this case the person did not. They didn't say, I'm so sorry, where are my manners? I just got irritated because, I can't do that. You made it sound really easy, and for me it's really hard. And I said, I'm so sorry. I know the window tolerance, this is how it works, so there's really no other way. But I've watched a gazillion videos on it, if you want them, and they all say the same stuff. So by the way, the freeze response actually is also part of the equation. So really, there's actual always solutions to all of it. But they didn't do any of that. They just got in my face about it. Okay, so when you see an app, you just remember 28 days, that's not how this works. Integration, there's a very specific time. Well, I'm going to leave that one alone for now. But yeah, when people ask for shortcuts, you already know. They're caring about, let me, with the trending topics, make sure I can sell. So they're also not caring about what they're doing. You find personal growth and your soul's journey because you have found yourself, and now you're actually into the tools, personal growth, spiritual growth, any of that, which can be tools, guidance, whatever it is, you're into that as a support to continue expanding, not in a way of I am suffering life and I have nowhere else to go. Okay, so when people think that the only way to sell something is because others are struggling and they need a solution to a problem, and you think personal growth, spiritual growth, there's no problem. There's two equations. If you're not capable of wielding the emotional and mental volume, then that's where you want to be aware. There's people who are mindful therapists who are doing what they're doing best, helping people to get to reparent and do all of that stuff. Spiritual growth, spiritual ascension, spiritual journey, all of the spiritual. If you see a shaman saying, come to me, don't go to therapy, I'll save you 20 years, that's a spiritual bypass for children. And while they will say and look at me and how dare you, because they believe the ancient stories and they believe in the ancient mechanisms, I say, do you care about people's health, or do you care about being a shaman who's saying I'm going to heal you instead of go to 20 years of therapy? Wow, like seriously, you just disregarded the fact that you're putting in the shithole a bunch of researchers, academics, and people who know about the embodied brain, and you give me the shaman stories or whatever it is you want to give me. I'm a mystic, I know all about it. That's very irresponsible. There's a reason why there's mindfulness risk, meaning that not everyone should be engaging in it. And so any mindfulness practitioners, if they have attachment trauma education, they will be sure to make it very clear, look, there are certain things that are ideal for what you're telling me, and in this case, it's not ideal. I have a person who came to me wanting Akashic record readings, Reiki, hypnotherapy, all of it, all the spiritual stuff, and they described to me a certain amount of things, and I said, okay, so here's the deal. You just described to me clinical dissociation, and this means that there are aspects that involve someone, not because I don't know the topic, I do, but I'm not the expert in it. And if you really want to empower yourself, I can support you with these things, but what you really want is this, a mindful therapist. And I know you've been to one before, not mindful perhaps, but you want to do the child work with them, and as you do that, I can accompany you with other stuff. They never came back around. Okay, so when someone describes to clinical dissociation, you don't say, yeah, I'll take you on board. And when someone says, my shaman told me they'll save me 20 years of, you say, no, that's not right. So when someone's promising transformation, and someone's buying into it, while people will point a finger at me and tell me I'm a charlatan with channeled guidance for any of it, I'll be like, hey, you know what? I'll take it all day long, but what are you doing about this shit? Oh, how about the therapists who are not mindful yet, and I get to have to try to have their back while people tell me it's bullshit, that's 7 or 10 years, because all they want is my money. Okay, so when people are empowered, they stand together, and that's why science and spirituality come together. When people are affected in a way of beginning to have biases towards groups of people, like spiritual mystics, we're not charlatans. And while I understand why it's there, this is the part of why we work with empowered science people that know that we're not snake oil. And anybody who instead has biases, activation, and all that other stuff, there's a bunch of groupies out there. They actually, this is my teenager, right? She's coming in all the time. She's so trends. I've never been like, wow, it's always been okay. I fell for them a little bit. And so that's the part of where I need to take a step back. There's my ego, there's myself, and say, hey, collective, this person, yes, we know what buffoon means. That's okay. We all make mistakes, but you're going to learn the right things from the right people. And when you do, you're not going to think it's hard or easy. You're going to know some people have it easy, some people have it hard, because we see life the way we feel it. And those who have it easy can share with those who have it hard, hey, come on over. We're going to hang out together and we're going to do great. And you're going to get to hear where it is easy, and it's not going to be boring. It's going to be fun. As for the ones who need to hear that life is hard and it's going to hit you and keep hitting you, and they get up and down and up and down, they're actually doing it wrong, but let's not tell them, because they prefer their epistemically lazy, charged narrative groupies and their biases and their generalizations and their stereotypes. It's called small-minded people, by the way, which is me letting you in on fun fact. I'm not very interested in small-minded people. This is my teenage version with my grown-ass version, and I've always been this way. Which is why, yes, temperament, personality patterns, they continue to be worked with. Right now, I'm doing it. As God chimes in to remind me I have something else to share besides this stuff. So, the anatomy of a trend, I'm going to refrain from using the word that I thought, but when someone carries around core wounds and they cast stones, I just think, well, I made a promise to God, Jesus, and Holy Spirit. I'm uncomfortable right now the way you're talking, so I need to leave because I told you what I promised. This was me to my BFFF or someone. They were just going on and on and on. I was like, this is getting really awful. I'm sorry. I understand you have very strong emotions, and at that point I didn't have the effective realism word or the explanation of trauma. Now I do, and I'm like, okay, that's projection on all counts, and I thought you loved them. Instead, it really seems like you don't, because you want a bunch of bad shit to happen to them. And wow, I mean, I have 3 twin flames, not just one, but gosh darn it. Nope, no Lucifer monster in any human being. Nope, I have never seen any kind of monster anywhere, because, well, 1, God made us perfect, but 2, that's the part of why 5D mystics don't get overwhelmed by any of entities that come in our sphere. Actually, I've had a person try to grab information from my sphere. It was hilarious as it was happening. I was like, what do you think you're going to get? Your own mind works with words. So really, whatever you think you're going to get, it's going to be whatever you wanted to get. But okay. So good intentions, they are not enough. It takes the right action performed with the right consciousness to produce the necessary results. Thank you, Sadhguru. Okay, so when a person can discern, it's because they know what truth is, they know what trend is. Objective truths, objective reality. So social reality created by embodied individuals. We have subjective reality in groups, and groups of people don't take their kids to the hospital and think we're demons. Just keep that one in mind. Then we have flat earthers. They're also doing great. Spiritual bypass community are having a fun time. I'm having a fun time too. And everybody has a reason. Their soul's journey is so they can all come together and continue doing what they do best. And as for those of us who are in the middle, we're like, okay, let's keep moving forward with that which is science, spirituality, and they come together because that's what we're made of. Well, for some, the spiritual stuff is not it. And that's great and dandy, because we're not going to make people into believers, because see, science and the essence of life and consciousness in the infinite sphere, they just use different words. So while it is true, words are used to shape popular opinion and justify legal action and political policy, thanks to reality being socially defined and the 5D collective who are epistemically curious, disciplined, diligent, and their authentic self, we are going to continue enlightening our species. Of course, we still have things going on that people suffer, that the unsteady self-image are irate about, and we understand injustice, betrayal, humiliation, abandonment, rejection, and how some people don't have the strength to have their own back. So those people will have Peter Pan and the Lost Boys and Wendy if they stay ignorant. if they move into the human sphere, they will have all the great mindful therapists who will help them to get to their authentic self, and they will continue to do that, and we will all continue to respect each other's differences. Of some feel life easy, some feel it hard, but we're all moving to the ventral vagal state. And that's how we keep moving into the future, because we all own our nervous systems. Now that we know about survival mode and apps that don't help you to get to where I'm talking about, but let me leave it alone. So the anatomy of a trend becomes a trend because societally we have welcomed a number of researchers, policymakers, and lo and behold, professionals. And so with spiritual and mystical and sciences, the personal growth sphere just got bigger, but it also got very specific. You only do personal growth and your soul's journey if you're your whole self. On the other hand, the ones who are bypassing and still coming together, they're going to do something, but it's not actual growth. But then again, they don't know how to discern the truth, because when you're non-bilaterally integrated and you're protecting yourself, but you're not connected and grounded in reality, which means you don't think any of your cherishable beliefs can be falsifiable, we have flat earthers, like I said, and they isolate like the other people. So isolation is a sign of an unhealed and more wound, and we're right and you're wrong, and that never has worked in the past to this day. So again, there's no fear, because any embodied self-aware person is going to be like, this is where people make a difference, when they all are working together. As for the ones who people spotlight that are maladaptive patterns of behavior, well, our species does come from a past, so it actually makes sense as we move into the present and into the future that things balance each other out. And so this is the part of, I don't get philosophical. Well, I don't want to. I try to bring in, history, our timeline. Yeah, so it makes sense to me that we are moving. Science found out about our nervous system about 1960s or 1970s. It's only 2026. So really, that's not that much time. You know what I mean? Kings used to, for diplomacy, sleep in the same bed. I just found this out from a website. I don't know if it's true or not, but I could look it up. But for now, I was like, wow, that looks like a fact, but I'll have to double check it. But in the meantime, just share it anyways. Just FYI, I'll find out, and then I'll let you know if it's a real deal or not. But it doesn't actually sound untrue, because of them poisoning each other and stuff like that. So sleeping in the same bed for the kings would mean, wow, I'm going to actually trust that you won't stab me in the back. Okay, so the authentic indicator, when a person and or you is authentic, it's everyone has something to contribute to the world and to each other. And so your soul's journey, that is actually personal. So for the people who are personally growing, you'll know what your soul's journey is. In my case, it's for you to be you, and for me to be me, and for us to inspire human potential together. And for others, it might be, I don't know, embodying I have no idea, because it's their own soul's journey to talk about. But what's fun is that slow and steady gets you there. And so the capacity to own your growth choices is because you do understand your best interest. And you understand it from an embodied brain that you wield, and you know how your mind can be tricked, like mine, because of blind faith and trust. However, when you do know how to discern truth, it's because you know what the best interest is, which is not about biases and charged states. That's the whole point. Okay, so people who their cherishable beliefs are the truth, and they believe that demons and devils possess people, there's explanations from neuroscientists. And when someone wants to bring to me ancient books and tell me ancient books are right, I think ancient books are ancient for a reason, and you're reading it to me and giving me your interpretation of it and applying it to things that are it, but that's a Hansel and Gretel trick. That's not actual manipulation for those of us who discern trend versus truth. Okay, so maintaining that humility. You don't buy the growth trend because you are able to find your real personal growth and soul's journey because you are authentically living who you are. So the transformation is it easy for you to be you? Awesome. That means you're able to respect others. You choose the high road if someone gets into maladaptive patterns of behavior, whatnot, and you continue to stay yourself. So it's not hard to find yourself. It's not hard to be yourself. It's not hard to interact with someone. And if someone's stonewalling you and you're in a couples deal, Terry Real just had a great video on that. And if you don't have the capacity with the tips he gives to get to a good place, then he says, come find me, with the partner, of course. And that's the part of why emotional reality, it's real, subjective reality. So when you're in relationships, relational integrity means also relational joy, which is why we don't go around trying to humiliate different groups of people. So enlightened ones, which are all the ones who decided as we kept moving forward that we're going to respect people that don't want to move into the present or the future. Okay? So respect means that we allow ourselves to continue to work with the systems, and the systems that are not trending are the systems that are going to be moving into the future, while those who are thinking that we're going to go backwards, they don't have faith in humanity. But that's a whole other story. So before we go, I wanted to share humility is one of the few things that will protect any of those who are looking to continue their ascension, awakening, and enlightenment. Because when you turn, I'm the enlightened one out of all these other people, that becomes an identity. Okay, so there's plenty of words that I could use, although I don't want to use them too much. But if your identity is your human name, awesome, then you're gonna know what I'm talking about. The whole self. Okay, so your human name, if you're a spiritual mystic, you will know of your past lives, future lives, all that. You're not confused. You still know this lifetime you're embodying your human name. That's the identity we have. As for all of that which we come with, it's called, yes, our social, our heritage, our social society. We're continuing to work with, again, the laws and all that. So we stay grounded in reality, and we continue to pivot to our ventral vagal state when we're around anyone. So all of God's children will definitely get what they prayed for. There will be, though, no need for that sacrifice. You've all heard of the sacrifice thing. Where are my cards? Give me a minute. As this is what cards came with it. And some will say, oh, but what if they pray for destruction? Yeah, though, that's not how this works. Oh, I know. So many people think that actually that could happen. But then again, they're like, but that's a contradiction. But they don't seem to know who God is and how God wouldn't destroy. So again, when someone thinks that God would destroy, really, it's usually people who haven't yet noticed that we all are afraid of death or of the infinity and unknown, because we have human secondary consciousness. It's called uncertainty. Once you've mastered that fear, you become common sense, and it's like, oh, it's okay. It'll be okay. So the seed of enlightenment, as Sadhguru points out, within every one of us. The kingdom of God, as Jesus points out, within every one of us. So as you pray, your prayers will be answered. No need to sacrifice, but you do need to know how to receive. And those instead who do believe they have to sacrifice an eye or something like that, like Odin, well, that's where it will continue to be the poison of the rigid and or chaotic, the ones who do not witness that which is the mirror to them, but they become a stone. So the stonewalling, it's an emotionally unavailable person. So they don't connect to the vessel. I have to cover this up for YouTube does things. And as they connect to the vessel through the thread, our lovely insula is what connects us. We are able to have that self-love, that unconditional love that comes with your capacity to know we're all human. I'm only human after all. Don't put your blame on me, but we do take responsibility, right? So subjective reality, we all have it. Subjective emotional experiences, again, so some easy, some hard, and then they move to what they will define it as. Once you have your own back, that's where you're going to understand this unconditional love towards yourself and how everyone else can have it by being welcomed. So we don't humiliate. Let's say I meet a flat earther, I won't humiliate them. I'm going to speak to them. And the biases and the charges and your opinions and what you think matter, which is the part of why it's not let's fuck with people, because there's a very big different energy when you're not respecting differences with the actual humility that I was talking about before. So ego and self have humility when you're aware, I've never lived one day in your body. In your mind, I never will. And I'm grounded in reality to know that any one of us can be manipulated. And then I'm grounded in reality to know how epistemic trust works. And if it's broken for an infant and a child, that they actively did not get set up to succeed at all. No, I got set up to succeed, and I'm doing what I can to share why there's a difference between the ones who say the truth and the ones who are trending. And hey, if the people want to continue believing in a web of lies, may they do so. As for the whole apocalypse, the people who believe in that, so here's where the death, thanatos, facing thanatos, death, leads us to aletheia, truth. So the death of removing the veils of deception. So when someone wants to keep dead stories alive, I just think there's your spiritual bypassers. innermost knowing, mystic truths. Mystics who know spiritual and enlightenment truths know it's not the stories of our ancestors that need to stay fixed in stone. Those stories existed because, here's the part, you don't have to believe in our spiritual angels, none of that, but we know what it means for our species to continue moving into the future. So again, it's something called, we respect differences, and luckily with science. So here's where lovely Kairos, I found out that this is emotional time versus Chronos, which is material time. Okay, so the ones who will instead become connected to the thread of their authentic self, to the body, and all of the amazing aspects that are part of anyone who chooses to move into that personal growth and soul's journey, and therefore leave the web of lies to the past. Let me find my spot. So it's right here. Kairos and Chronos have a very different meaning in the time of now. But for those who will leave us behind and stick to their stories of good and bad and evil and all that stuff, their prayers will be granted. And as lovely Jesus pointed out, and this is a quote I got from Terry Real, for he who has more, more will be given. For he who has not even the little he has will be taken away. And that is not actually a threat, because the explanation Terry gave was when you are never taking what you get with appreciation, it always seems like it's never good enough. Okay, so the fulfillment of an embodied brain of a person comes from this, in the middle, self-loathing, gut-wrench, torn apart, is what has people longing for more. It's an insecurely, meaning dysregulated, non-securely, afraid, all of the words. It's not a bad thing, it's a thing called, we all have a default mode network, we all have a 0-1-year-old, and we all can be securely attached from that or not. So I hope for our 3D, 4D brothers and sisters that they will choose at one point or another to go and get themselves whole, so that they can actually join us in the land of the living, because aliveness is amazing. And so they can become empowered, regulated leaders, own their brain, understand some of us have it easy, some have it hard, but at the end of the day, the easy thing, it's about the restorative embodiment. And so when you are, love is the greatest of successes on the path to prosperity. Who can fully experience abundance without it? No one. But love is something that you will either have or you will return to, but returning to it is a journey, as I said, of the heart, of the mind, the soul, of the self, and it's of a person who will have had to return to their origin. So their transformation, the first time they're transformed thanks to good therapists. Then from that moment forth, they have a choice. And if they do this, I'm alive now. Well, then they get to be part of the group of the 3D, 4D, which, by the way, when I came around to the mystic stuff, because I began without being mystic, but I was already channeling, download, all that stuff. I just didn't know it. I was informed of those who today are bringing us to the expansion, enlightenment, at one point will begin to go backwards. Well, that wasn't exactly the wording, but you will find so much fulfillment in working for a cause that you truly believe in. Now, when you truly believe in something, remember that there is no competition if you're truly original. Okay, so people who are original, they understand how it works, the truth. The truth works in a way that's not mysterious too much, but it's a chance, not good luck or bad luck. It's just basically a prepared mind. As Louis Pasteur presents, chance favors a prepared mind. So the trends don't last long because they actively aren't taking all of the pieces into consideration, and typically you will spot that they will be missing a part. Let me empower you. So when I have had people who don't want what I have, because I say, look, what you just described to me is clinical dissociation, and while I have spiritual and personal growth tools, and I can certainly accompany you, what we want for your best interest is for these people to be a part of it. I can find network, because I have a network of mindful therapists, and I know how to spot the ones who are actually embodying their ventral pivot as we speak, because of the way that they're going to talk to you, the way they're going to know you are healable, because that's all the good ones out there. As for the spiritual bypassers and the somatic bypassers, they're all over here. And so when I'm seeing the ones who I thought would move into the future with us go backwards, well, technically they're just staying in the identity. So they're more interested in their performance. Their ego has some show and tell to do. So Pinocchio, are you enjoying your prison with the money that you're getting thrown? That's how I think of it. And this is me distancing myself from the reality, which is there's a bunch of people who are not healed. So I'm not seeing their authentic self. And I do understand what it means when God chimes in to remind me not to play the know-it-all, free will, and he never gives his children more than what they can bear. So the ventral pivot, it's our human makeup, and our humanity will keep coming forth, and the essence of life that breathes through each one of us, spiritual and not, will continue to also arise as we ascend and as our species advances and continues to enlighten via science and spirituality that come together. So when you do meet the ones who don't enjoy that which is empowerment, leave it to them to continue following Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. As for us, we already know discerning truth, easy. It's not a huge paradigm shift, it's baby steps. And the ones who are impatient are the same ones who don't notice they're still trying to save themselves from something called a very scary, scary business. And my heart goes out to all of them because I don't have that. My 3-year-old's my most favorite memory, and as I grew to 5, 6, 7, 8, I actually saw myself continue to mold to reorganize, and then as I got older, I reorganized, but I never once said I'm going to hide myself. In fact, this is the one thing. When you hear about the twin flame stuff, let me just tell you, it's all a very, very unfortunate thing. I remember when we shifted from 3D, 4D to 5D, and what I can tell you simply is this, that when you are on your soul's journey, the lovely, empowered, any divine feminine, divine masculine, all that, they're not going to be confused of what's going on. They're not going to be thinking they're being tested in a way of you're right, they're wrong. Devils, demons, or any of that, okay? Nobody's going to be confused because when you're discerning truth, it's we're all humans and we come from the same place and we all have an embodied brain, okay? So personal growth, soul's journey, spiritual growth, they're all available to those who are continuing to move into the future. As for the ones who continue to validate each other, we'll be very kind if we can and understand if they don't want to hang around us. Thanks for stopping by. Be yourself the smart way. Stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable. And check out PayHip and Substack, and we'll be back with more.